That's very much what I try to do. So when I'm here working, I try to be on mission. And when I'm there, I try to be on mission with family and not kind of be losing both battles, so to speak, by wishing I was somewhere I can't be. I've got kids, and for those of you out there who have kids, I think one of the kind of most scary thing is kind of knowing what kind of a planet we're leaving our children.
How does that relate to the vision that you created in that moment in the hotel room with your son?
After those 2 years of thinking about it and meditation and talking to people, I realized I really wanted to do two things. One was to make sure that every child in the world is getting enough love. The second goal that I had was...
Let's imagine that we meet 3 years from now and your life was 10 times better than it was today. Based on the vision that you have shared, what would you be telling me right now? Agree or disagree? Is work-life balance even possible for tech startup CEOs? Now, in this episode, I had the opportunity of sitting with David Hartman. David Hartman is the CEO of Helio Additive, and in this episode, he shared insight on how to maintain a healthy work-life balance. We dive into topics such as effective leadership, strategic time management, and how to set clear boundaries with your team. Now, this is an episode for leaders who want to grow and scale at a high level. So make sure you relax, sit back, and enjoy. Welcome back to another episode on the NextGen Tech CEO's Journey Scaling to Freedom. I'm Deano Delpleash, your host, and today we have a remarkable guest with us.
Yeah, thank you for the very generous introduction there, Deano. I really appreciate it. Yeah, sustainability. I think I've got kids, and for those of you out there who have kids, I think one of the kind of most scary thing is kind of knowing what kind of a planet we're leaving our children, right? And it's scary to think that over the next decades, parts of the world will be literally uninhabitable for part of the year because of heat waves and humidity waves and things like this. Storms. I don't need to tell you guys what the impact of climate change is. But I think, therefore, it behooves kind of all of us to see where in our areas, in a small way or in a big way, we can get involved. And through my friend Patrick Sandin, Singularity U and sustainability consultant, about, I would say 8 years ago, I got more involved in the intersection between sustainability and digitalization. And this idea that sustainability is something we need to work on. Climate change is this really scary threat on the horizon, but digitalization offers us a tool set that could help exponentially change that situation. And then 3D printing is one of those kind of exponential technologies that can just change our manufacturing landscape. Give you an idea, and I don't want to talk like monologuing about it, but 27% of the world's energy usage could be saved if we went to some kind of localized, decentralized manufacturing approach, because that energy just goes straight into, large inventories, shipping stuff across the world. So, cut a long story short, 3D Printing Industry Awards, very prestigious, really exciting to be involved, being on that committee with so many talented people from the industry, all looking at companies in that space, seeing what is happening around sustainability and 3D printing, who's having the most impact, who could we support by giving them recognition so that in the future they can continue to make that impact happen. Yeah, we're just starting that process, should be finished sometime this month, next month, yeah, and it's really exciting to be there. Michael Petch, who runs that, is fantastic, and it's going to be a good ride. Yeah.
But thank you so much for highlighting that. Recently I was at a lecture and they were actually talking about the importance of sustainability in the beginning stage of companies, because one of the biggest challenge with bigger companies is very hard to integrate it. So I'm happy that you are taking the forefront here as a CEO, leading a startup itself, so you can be most likely a model of example of how this can be possible for future next gen CEOs. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm happy I'm having this conversation with you as well. At this point, what I'm really curious about is your entrepreneurial journey. Yeah, you've had quite a successful career, and they usually said that anybody who decides to become an entrepreneur, something is not right up there because it doesn't seem like the most, obvious path for us. So tell us a bit about your story as an entrepreneur. How did that took shape?
I think I'm the kind of person, people tell me no, or people tell me I can't do it, it makes me want to do it much, much more. And it makes me angry when people tell me I can't do something or I can't achieve something. I really enjoyed my corporate career. It was 17 years at one of the world's largest chemical companies.
Wow.
Super colleagues, great environments, fantastic businesses and partnerships and so on. And it's still something that I look back at very fondly. What I really wanted was to have more significant impact in terms of changing industries, in terms of changing things about the world. And, when you're working in corporate, you're having an impact. It's very difficult to have an industry-changing impact. And with Helio Additive, the opportunity came along to do something industry-changing. At that time, a friend of mine said to me, he said, "You can't do it just because you're good at baseball doesn't mean you can play basketball," right? And I thought, well, that's one perspective, but my perspective is, like Kierkegaard said, we're here to experience life. It's not a problem to be solved. It's a journey to be experienced, and I'm going to go and make this happen. And I'm really proud of the team and the people around me that we've been able to get this far and continue to succeed.
That's truly inspiring, and I can see that took a lot of courage. Yeah, because I'm sure that everybody around you may have been telling you otherwise. Yeah, I love the quote that you just shared from your friend. Is that because you're good at basketball, that means you can play baseball, and sometimes that can feel like that's the truth. So what I'm really curious about, what was that internal dialogue for you like? Yeah, making that adjustment, because a lot of our listeners, they are at the peak of making that transition, or they're starting that transition. So what was that internal dialogue was for you, seeing that the outside dialogue was such on the opposite side?
Look, I think it's really hard to think back and kind of work out exactly what it was. I think, first of all, I'd done very much in corporate what I wanted to do. So I'd run those businesses globally. I'd reached the senior vice president position. I was quite, I felt I didn't have much left to prove in the corporate world. And that certainly was freeing because it gave me the chance to say, okay, your ego has been satisfied. Now it's time to do something a little bit more risky. And I think that was another part of it. I felt that my risk appetite wasn't sufficient. I felt people looked at me and said, "Oh, David, you're taking all these risks here and there." And I thought, I'm not taking any risks, is my feeling. And that was something that scared me, hitting late 30s and being in a situation where I felt I wasn't taking enough risks. But for me, once I made the decision, or once I kind of started exploring the decision to leave and do this, the real trigger was having this opportunity founding Helio Additive. And I realized this could really be game changing for the industry. This is something that nobody else is doing, nobody has done. We could have a huge impact in slashing the cost and bringing up price performing of digital manufacturing. And it was clear that was an important thing. And I thought that would be a worthwhile thing to dedicate the next decade to. And so I went home for Christmas, discussed it with my family in New Zealand, came back and handed in my resignation. And I was really lucky that the team that I was working with, my direct reports, my boss, they were all extremely supportive. And then COVID hit. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. That must have been quite the roller coaster. Wow. So tell us about that. What was going through your mind after deciding to make that decision, and then the pandemic was upon you? What was going through your mind then?
Well, I think everybody remembers where they were when they realized that the pandemic was serious. I was on a mountain in Peru, just coming down. Wow. We'd had no cell phone coverage. It was a couple of days after my birthday in March 2020. We'd had no cell phone coverage, and as we came down the mountain, cell phones started vibrating, and everybody was realizing that Lima Airport was going to close. and borders were shutting down. So I did, Cusco, Lima, Amsterdam, Düsseldorf, picked up some stuff, Düsseldorf, Amsterdam, KL, picked up the family, and then KL, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and went straight into quarantine. And yeah, it was certainly those 7 days in quarantine. They separated the family. So I went with my oldest son. My wife went with our youngest, and really had, I think 10 days of quarantine in that small hotel room, trying to keep my son and mine and hopes and spirits up, right? And thinking about what was the decision. And I asked for some colleagues to send me some stationery, and I drew a big vision board. Actually, both my son and I drew vision boards. So we drew a big vision. I drew a big vision board. Next 5 years, what do I really want as my vision? And and that experience really cemented for me that no matter what was going on in the outside world, this was something that I needed to do. And it was just so clear when I wrote that vision board.
Oh, wow. No matter what's going on in the outside world, this is something that I needed to do. And that makes me curious. You state that your big goal right now is to, bring the game-changing digital manufacturing process, simulation technology to the market. How does that relate to the vision that you created in that moment in the hotel room with your son? Tell us more about that.
So 2018, 2019, I was involved in a really amazing Scandinavian leadership program called Stifinder or Pathfinder. Many Scandinavian business people will know about it. I don't want to go into detail now, but if you're interested, Google Stifinder, probably the most amazing experience of my life. And one of the things that I came out with from Stifinder was both a roadmap, but also a clearer idea of what my values were and what I wanted to achieve. And after, those 2 years of thinking about it and meditation and talking to people, I realized I really wanted to do two things. One was, and these are big dreams, and they sound silly when, somebody small like me paints a really big dream. It sounds very arrogant, but I don't mean it that way. I know both of them are probably impossible, but they're still worth doing. So the one was to make sure that every child in the world is getting enough love. And the thinking behind that was, there are kids out there who don't have enough food, who don't have enough shelter, who don't have enough medicine. But but there are people working on that. But when I look at how separated parents are becoming from their kids, I think we're losing with time bonds between parents and children and moments of love and moments of joy between parents and children. And that was something I wanted to work on. And then the second value that I had, or the second goal that I had, was I think it's no question we've missed the boat on the whole climate change thing. I mean, we may be able to mitigate some of the worst effects, but we certainly won't be able to avoid the impact. We're seeing that now. And what that means is that communities are going to be more and more vulnerable. Recently in New Zealand, we had big storm fronts come in the first quarter and first half of the year. And effectively road infrastructure was washed out completely in some of these actually not terribly isolated communities, where it was up to a week before they were reconnected to the country in terms of electricity and telecommunications and so on. And what I realized is what I wanted to do was somehow work out a way where these communities could become more resilient to the effects of climate change. And it was clear that one of the strong ways to be more resilient was to have a local manufacturing base. When that big heat wave comes in and you've got 45 degrees outside, and if people are outside, they will die because of the combination of heat and humidity, you don't want to be missing a spare part in your power plant or in your air conditioning plant for your town. You want to make sure that your infrastructure keeps running, because it's that infrastructure that is going to save lives. And you don't want to have to, go on Taobao and order that part in South China and wait for it to be delivered. You want to be able to manufacture it right then, right there. And for me, that was an example of, okay, well, what is holding us back from having that in communities? And that's largely price performance of digital manufacturing, because it's the kind of small scale manufacturing that we should be able to deploy in communities if we have the right know-how. So those kind of two things came together. And on the children's topic, I started a series of children's books with a friend of mine called Ratty and Bill. We're on 8 books now. And the point is to help children and parents have these shared moments of love and understand that beauty is everywhere. And on the helping communities get stronger and more resilient to climate change, I started Helio Additive. Where we're now 3 years in with deep tech that is changing how digital manufacturing is scaled.
David, I must say that you are truly inspiring. As you were sharing, you may remember this quote. I don't know if it was Steve Jobs who said is that, I think it was Steve Jobs. He says, the ones who believe that they're crazy enough to change the world, they are the ones who are going to do it. Yeah, and you said something interesting. You said that, yeah, the goal may be impossible, but it's worth doing. Yeah, the goal may be impossible, but it's worth doing. And I believe that fate has brought us together, because one thing, my vision is to create a world where every young high achiever has a high-performing mentor who's mentoring them. Yeah, in my head, that seemed impossible. How can I have every single individual have a 1 hour? That's not impossible. However, I've came to the realization that it is necessary to have goals that are impossible and inspired on this journey as an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
it's very necessary. It's a must, I must say. It's a must to have these goals. And you mentioned something else that really jumped out, knowing your values. Yeah. Really becoming connected to your value and leading from that place. And I can see that you are the manifestation of what a NextGen CEO is. Yeah, someone who values people over profit. Yeah, and who have a big vision for a better future that we'd like to create. And that's truly inspiring. Yeah. Now, I'm curious. Yeah, and this question is just a play on words, and I want to see where we're gonna take this. I want you to imagine, David. Let's imagine that we're 3 years out. Yeah, we meet 3 years from now, and your life was 10 times better than it was today, based on the vision that you have shared. What would you be telling me right now?
Three years from now. So, yeah, 45-year-old David meets you, and and 10 times better. Okay, let me try this. So, yeah, it was really nice meeting with you 3 years ago, and a lot has happened since then. I think the number one change for me is that I get to spend significantly more time with my family, and I found a way that we can move the family. Right now, we spend 4 months of the year in New Zealand, 4 months of the year in Europe, and 4 months of the year in big city Asia, and we keep rotating like that, and it works really well for everybody. Helio has managed to optimize millions of parts in thousands of microfactories around the world. We have a thriving team in Germany and the US to complement the team that we have in China. And we're partnered with all the leading digital manufacturing providers, both material and hardware, but also the brand owners. And we're getting a lot of great recognition around that. We've managed to bring hundreds of printers and thousands of materials onto our platform. And then that's been really instrumental in changing these things. At the same time, one of the things I've had the chance to do is work in New Zealand with local communities and start to bring manufacturing into those communities, which is something that 3 years ago when we first met, it was very difficult to do because we were a small company. So doing side projects is something you don't want to do as a small company, right? You don't want to dilute your focus. But now, 3 years later, that's possible. Yeah. So I think that's definitely 10 times better. And the other thing is that Ratty and Bill, the children's books, made it onto the New York Times bestseller list, and they were featured on Oprah, and that was a really big thing.
My man. Wow. Now, what?
Yes,
what I'm
going
curious
back
about,
to 2023.
and what was some of the biggest challenges ahead? So what I'm hearing is that you have really created a great balance between work and family. Yeah, you create a really great balance between work and your dream and your passions, and you're able to balance that synergy between those different parts. What would you say are the greatest challenges in navigating that paradigm? What were the greatest challenges for you?
Well, right now I do 1 month New Zealand, 1 month Germany, and 1 month China, and I just rotate like that. It means spending 2 months away from the family. My kids are still young, 4 and 10. It's not something I ever wanted to do. My father also spent a lot of time away from us with work, and I always said I wouldn't do that. And now I'm in the situation where I'm doing that. And I think one of the downsides is it feels like I'm shortchanging everybody. So definitely for Helio, it's not great that certainly during some periods that the CEO is away for one entire month. Of course, I work. If anybody out there who is involved with Helio is listening to this, I work really hard during that month while I'm in New Zealand, or it's not like I don't do anything. But definitely it means not being face-to-face with the team, not being face-to-face with partners. And that's an issue, right? So that's a challenge. And we my wife and I kind of put a time limit on that and said, well, that's going to work for maybe 2 years, but that's not going to work indefinitely. And we have to find some way to deal with that. And right now, I don't have a good answer to that problem. So that's one of the challenges. I think the other challenge for us right now, we spent 3 years working on what is really a unique and groundbreaking technology, and now we're in the go-to-market stage. And it's definitely a cliche, but I think it's true. What worked the last 3 years will not work for this stage. So it's kind of a recalibration of what I do, how I talk to people, how I interact with external people. The last 3 years was all about, do the science, build the tech, build that core technology team. This next period is very, very much about listen and talk to all kinds of potential partners and customers and distill the best and bring it into how we build product. So these are very, very different phases. And I think it would be silly not to acknowledge that it's challenging to make that transition.
Yeah. And, I just want to acknowledge you for sharing that, because that's one of the many, how should I say, that's one of the many evils of entrepreneurship. Yeah, I was actually having a conversation with a really, really close friend on my island, and they created one of the first digital payment system on the island. Yeah, just imagine, digital payment on an island that's alien, to everybody local. However, one of the biggest challenge that the founders faced was, how do they create that balance between the relationship that they have outside of business? Because when you're working on something new, it's like every day you just got to be going at it. So now I want to ask you this question, David. What are the opportunities you can create? Yeah, if you show up with determination, knowing what you know now.
Can you say the question again, Deano, please?
Yeah, sure, no problem. What are the opportunities you could create if you show up with even more determination now?
So, look, I think being on mission is really important. And like for me, when I'm in Germany or in China, I try to fill every minute with learning and with opportunities for doing and making change, because I have to use that precious time as much as I can, because I know when I'm going to go to New Zealand, definitely I'll be working at night, but when I have a chance to spend time with my kids, that is what I'm going to be doing and prioritizing that, right? So I think, Osho, Osho, right? The Indian guru, he said something that I really like. He said, look, all these people come to me from all over the world, and when they're not with me, they want to be with me. But then when they're with me, they miss home. They're homesick, right? And his comment was, when you're here, be here. When you're there, be there. But yeah, and that's very much what I try to do. So when I'm here, I working, I try to be on mission. And when I'm there, I try to be on mission with family, and not kind of be losing both battles, so to speak, by wishing I was somewhere I can't be. Right?
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I'm happy I'm having this conversation with you is because these are the conversations that most entrepreneurs don't have. Yeah, but this is the reality that we face. Yeah, and you just said something that is so vital. Like when I'm with my family, I gotta be there with them fully. When I'm on mission, I gotta be there. And one of the biggest battles as well is really giving yourself that compassion that when you're with your family, don't beat yourself up because you're not doing work.
Yeah.
And when you're at work, don't beat yourself up because you're not with your family. Yeah, that's something that I've had to learn the hard way myself personally. So that's why I'm happy that we're having this conversation. So, entrepreneurs who are listening, who's on the same journey, can realize there's room for that. Yeah, and you can give the same compassion to yourself that you'll give to your team or you'll give to others.
Yeah, and look, I think that's important because I think we're taught. So I think part of the modern era is we're taught, it's okay to work from home. Everybody should enjoy great snacks in the office, a yoga room, 996 is bad. And there's nothing there individually that I disagree with. But as a startup founder and CEO and leader, yoga rooms and great snacks don't make companies successful. What makes companies successful is when people have their backs to the wall and work their asses off to get where they need to go. And to do that successfully, I think you have to do what you just said. You have to, when you're off, you're off. When you're on, you're totally on. There's nothing in between. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. One thing that we've been learning about you as you've been sharing is that you're also a big practice of yoga and meditation as well. So I'm curious, what would you say are some of your biggest strengths as a leader, and how does these practice contribute to you and the way you show up at work?
Look, I think I genuinely, I'm an introvert, but I can emulate extroversion reasonably well when I have to. I like people, even though they steal a lot of my energy. But I do like people. I like watching people grow and watching people develop. So for me, leadership is to a large extent about setting ambitious visions, coaching, and giving tough love. Soft love is when you let people be weak. Tough love is when you kind of know where people's breaking point is and you push them almost to that breaking point, but you're sensitive enough, you have enough empathy that you don't push them beyond that point. And once you do that, then all of a sudden they can do stuff that they never dreamed of. They may not like you for it, because in the short term that can be quite painful. But if you're good enough, you can do it without hurting people. And the results in terms of people's personal development is extremely powerful. And it also leads, of course, to good business development. I would say I'm a very positive kind of person when I work with people. I'm a bit impatient and quite demanding. I don't like when there's no action or when things take long and people can't explain to me why they're not taking long. I get impatient with that, and I tend to move people along pretty quickly then. I would say those are the main things,
I love that the distinction you made between soft love and tough love. Do you have any practical example of where you apply tough love to maybe someone, whether it's in your team or a family, and the return on investment was exactly what you expected? Do you have any examples that you can share?
I can share being on the receiving end, which I think is a fair thing to
Even
share.
better.
So my boss for most of my Covestro career was a very inspirational Taiwanese lady called Michelle Zhou. She's now the CEO of Castrol. She hired me into Bayer originally, and then over the years, on and off was my boss, and she was my last boss before I left. And she's the absolute master of doing this, where she can gauge really well what people are capable of, even when they don't know it themselves. And over the years, she's pushed me out of my comfort zone so many times, which then resulted in me struggling, right? But at the same time, finding a new equilibrium. And that's been a pattern. You know, that growth situation where you feel like you're plateaued and nothing is happening. And all of a sudden, you have this growth moment, right? And of course, in the background, growth has been happening, but you didn't really realize it. And so you felt it was flat. And then there was this massive jump. And I think this happens when you have somebody who is sometimes brutally pushing you to grow, but who also understands you and knows you well enough to see when you're getting to a point where you might, crack or break down or suffer some more permanent damage. Yeah, it's a fine line, but I think leaders who don't do that are shortchanging their team members. Yeah, because then how can their team members reach their max? There is no max potential. How can team members continue to expand their capability if they don't get that kind of experience?
Yeah. And how important would you say mentoring or coaching has been to your development as a leader as you're on this journey? Because I'm hearing a lot of mentorship and coaching here on your journey as well. How important would you say that has been for you personally?
Huge. I've been really lucky that I had the chance in my career to be mentored by, let's say, 4 or 5 unbelievably powerful people. Powerful, I don't mean powerful in terms of financial powerful. I mean powerful in terms of what they bring to the table. I do not believe that I could be where I am now without those people. And that means, what does that mean? That means they had the patience from when I was very young to sit there and listen and then guide without telling me what to do and without, sometimes maybe telling me what to do, but, more help me grow rather than saying, young guy, now you shut up and listen to the wisdom of the elders, right? There was no coaching like that. It was all bringing me along. And and I think with my leadership, that's the same. You pay it forward, right? You can never pay that back to those people, but you can pay it forward to other people.
Yeah. That is such a firebomb right there. And now what I'm about to do, I'm about to ask some quick fire questions. Yeah, and you can say yes or no. There's no maybe. Yeah, it's either yes or no. And these are gonna come fast. If you start hesitating, I'm gonna be rushing you to get an answer. Are you ready for this, David?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
Awesome. Okay, so the first one is, do you think entrepreneurship can be taught? Yes or no?
Yes.
Is failure necessary for growth? Yes or no?
Yes.
Are free perks and benefit worth it? Yes or no, David? Come on. Is work-life balance achievable as a founder?
Yes.
Should tech CEOs be on social media?
Yes.
Are mastermind groups worth it?
Don't know.
No, yes or no, David? There's no in between. Yes or no?
Yes.
Do you speed read?
Do I what?
Do you speed read?
Yes.
Have you pulled an all-nighter in the last month?
Yes.
Do you have a daily routine?
Yes.
Do you believe there's one right way to lead?
No.
Awesome. I hope through those quick fire statements, our audience can get to learn a bit more about who David is on another level. And just before we end this conversation, I want to ask you, what was the one biggest insight you've gained from this conversation as we were having it?
It's you make me think, about the other people who are on the same journey, right? It's like we're airplanes flying on a track, right? And yeah, we're focused on flying our own airplane, but there's other airplanes heading to the same destination, right? And we might not see those people, but we can radio them. For, I guess, one of the insights and maybe to listeners out there, if you're on the same journey and you want to have a chat, please reach out. There is an opportunity to share and to grow. And that was a great insight. Thank you.
Yeah, beautifully shared. And if this was your final message, David, and you won't be sharing any other message with the world, what would your final message be as we're speaking here right now?
Take the time to give love to the children around you. It's our one responsibility in life is to look after, the Native American traditions believe that people are responsible for themselves, but not children. Children only become responsible for themselves later. We have a responsibility there. We have a responsibility to love and to love unconditionally.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. And if anyone wants to connect with David and Helium Additive, where's the best place to do that?
LinkedIn is great. Anybody can connect with me on LinkedIn. Best place.
Awesome. I'll be leaving all of David information in the show notes. Thank you so much, David. Like, as I was having this conversation, my hair literally raised from my hand. Like, literally. It's such a pleasure to be speaking to a human being like yourself. When I first saw your LinkedIn, I saw a lot about tech, but during this conversation, I get to know a lot about your soul. So thank you for sharing openly and honestly. Yeah. And let's keep getting it.
Thanks so much, Deano. Yeah. Really nice to meet you.
You've heard the stories and strategies of today's top tech CEOs. But where do you fit in? What's your unique superpower as a founder? Now take our free CEO type quiz to unlock your leadership blueprint and gain insights to maximize your potential. Now go to levelupwithdeano.com and take just 3 minutes to complete this quiz. Instantly receive a detailed report revealing your CEO type along with a personalized 3-phase plan for achieving abundance and freedom on your term. Are you a visionary, a driver, an analyst, community builder, or self-improver? Take the quiz now and own your entrepreneurial journey. Discover what makes you tick as a founder and learn to lead from your sweet spot for success. That's www.levelupwithdeano.com. Spelling matters. Make sure you get it right. Take the quiz and start leading on your term, your way. This is your key to freedom, and go and get it. levelupwithdeano.com.